Picture this. You're following a map perfectly. Every turn, every instruction. But when you arrive at your destination, you find out that it burned down 20 years ago. That burning building is the Japanese social contract. See, the old stereotype that in Japan your job was your life was kind of true, and not just in the toxic way. Your job wasn't just income, it was your social life. The long hours, the mandatory drinking, and the company trips meant that your coworkers ended up becoming your genuine friend circle. And not just your friends, but even your wife. Not through matching services and not at bars, just good old-fashioned HR-sanctioned commingling. At its peak, a third of all Japanese marriages started at work. Overall, it was simple. Work your life at a company and they'll take care of the rest. One generation did that and it worked. It worked for their sons too. But when it got to their grandsons, it stopped working. And boy, did things fall apart. Now everyone's staring at the wreckage, asking why Japanese people aren't having kids. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the fallout and take a deeper look into the alternate paths men are starting to take. Because here's the thing, maybe Japan's birth rate isn't collapsing because people stopped wanting families. Maybe it's collapsing because an entire generation of men got locked out of eligibility. And that's a very different problem. And to address that problem, I wanted to make sure that I captured the voice of real people. So I ran a Japanese language survey here. Data is one thing, but I wanted to make sure I got real people's voices. So I'll be referencing that in this video too. Anyway, enough fluff, let's get on with it. I'm gonna start this by telling you about a broken promise. And to do that, I need to talk about what was promised in the first place. See, Japan rebuilt itself after World War II at a rapid pace. This was possibly due to widespread encouragement for laborers to take over-the-counter amphetamines, but hey, cracking eggs to make omelets, right? But out of this Herculean post-war effort, Japan created something beautiful, the 1980s. And for some reason, it felt like there was enough to go around for everyone. So the companies looked at the young men of the country and said, if you give us your life, we'll make sure it's a life worth living. I know that sounds weird, but in practice, this is what it looked like. You would graduate from school, join a company, the bigger the better, and you would work there day in and day out until the day you retired. In exchange, you got two things during your time with the company. First, stability, lifetime employment. Not only did you get automatic raises every year, you couldn't even be fired. You just had to show up, put in the hours, and the escalator would carry you upward. It was really Japanese. You might say it was boring, but it was safe. Second, family. Your income made you marriage eligible. If you worked for a company, that salary was almost like a marriage credit score. It proved that you could provide for a family. And your company was often how you found your wife in the first place. It was a cultural norm to meet your wife by talking to the office ladies, or OLs. Because what's more romantic than sweating nervously as you talk to accounts receivable? And the survey I ran corroborates this. 86% of men answered that this was the message that they grew up with. Get a job and marriage will just happen. That was the salaryman contract. For a while it worked, but then it didn't. In 1990, the bubble burst. This unceremoniously kicked off something called the Lost Decade. When the economy collapsed, Japanese corporations faced a choice. They had already promised lifetime employment to existing workers. Firing them would destroy the entire social contract. So instead, they stopped offering lifetime employment to new workers. This is a move widely known as pulling up the ladder behind you. The young men entering the workforce in the 1990s walked into a frozen job market. They had followed the directions exactly. They studied hard, got into good universities, only to learn that the promised escalator wasn't in fact an escalator. It wasn't even stairs. It was closer to an empty room with a post-it note saying, "Sorry about the economy." This event was called the Shushoku Hyogaki, or Employment Ice Age. But here's what most people miss. The so-called Ice Age generation. They're not the worst off generation anymore. Men today are in fact doing worse, and it's not even close. The average starting salary in 1990 was around 200,000 yen per month, and in 2024, it was 200,000 yen per month. Ladies and gentlemen, that is 34 years of progress. In the meantime, consumption tax tripled from 3% to 10%. Food costs rose. Housing in cities, especially Tokyo, became unaffordable. The value of the yen decided it had a fear of heights. All of these increases to the cost of living while wages have stalled. So at some point you have to stop calling it the lost decade, and that's why economists keep updating it. They called it the lost 20 years, and now they're calling it the last 30 years. In short, the deal used to be, give us your life and we'll give you a life worth living. But now the deal is, give us your life, punk. And if that's the deal, why would anyone sign up to start a family? Before I keep going, if this kind of breakdown of Japanese social systems is your thing, subscribing helps me keep making these. I promise to aim for content that earns your view. Alright, you want to know something weird? And nobody mentions this when they discuss Japan's marriage crisis. Japanese boys and girls barely interact when they're growing up. Different club activities, different friend groups, different tracks through adolescence. By the time they reach adulthood, many young people have no idea how to interact with the opposite gender. And the system told them that this was fine. After all, why would you need dating skills? Your company did that for you. Remember how couples used to meet? 31% met at work. Another 24% through introductions by their social circles, so usually friends of work colleagues. Rough numbers here, but over half of all marriages ran through the workplace pipeline in one way or another. So, instead of learning to navigate relationships, Japanese youth instead relied on the magical kokuhaku, or love confession. And if you don't know of this, then oh boy, romance in Japan, or a lot of Asian cultures actually, isn't a gentle slope. You don't flirt and gradually escalate interest through signals and dates. When you realize you like someone, you build up courage and just straight up confess, I like you, please go out with me. And while this was certainly stressful, this ended up meaning that entering a relationship didn't really require that you understood the other person. This works when you have a stable context like school or your workplace. You're in a steady community of people day in and day out. But what happens when the context disappears and the office is no longer a way to meet people? Well, 80% of my survey responses said that the natural meeting pipeline is shrinking. So why is that? One reason is that non-regular employment has risen from 20% of the workforce in 1990 to about 37% today. These workers don't have stable workplaces. They don't have the social infrastructure that full-time employment provides. This is the social floor, the first barrier that complicates entry into family life. Next, during the pandemic, workplace-based relationships dropped significantly, and they're not coming back. Companies increasingly discourage workplace romance. Somehow, HR departments felt that it was a liability to let their workers treat the office like the set of Love Island. So, the system where your employer was your wingman? Yeah, that's dead. Dating apps exist, of course. In fact, 40% of people who use them say that they do so specifically because of a lack of opportunities at work. But meeting people on apps requires skills. Conversational ability, self-presentation, and at least some understanding of the opposite gender. Skills that use a muscle that was never trained because the system used to handle it. Think fast, because here's another fat stat for you. 70% of unmarried Japanese men aren't even dating anybody. Just finding a partner at all is a hurdle. The old system used to solve money and meeting people at the same time. That system is gone and nothing replaced it. But here's the thing, it's not just about dating skills. There's also a huge problem of our eligible bachelors being not so eligible. Here comes the second floor, the income floor. In a study, Japanese women were asked the minimum acceptable income needed for a household. The answer was a consistent 5 to 6 million yen per year. And that's the minimum. Below that, and you're not a candidate that can provide for a family. What's this mean for the average man? Let's look at the almost 10 million unmarried men with ambitions to marry. Of these, 62%, or 6.2 million men, earn under 3 million yen per year. Only 9% earn even above 5 million yen per year. And you better believe that the higher paying jobs are the ones that require more time at work. In these studies, women have clear expectations. He has to have a regular salaried position. It's not acceptable if he's a non-regular employee. This is not ambiguous, and it's not unreasonable either. Because one might see this and say, okay, can't women contribute too? But it's not quite that simple. Japanese society expects women to quit their jobs once they become mothers. Women are often pressured, by their own company no less, to leave regular employment after childbirth. And even the women who stay are often ruled out of management track and higher salary positions. Why? Well, the company doesn't want to invest in talent that might leave the workforce. So, gender relations would require an entirely separate video. Just so I can keep this video focused, let's agree that women are asking for survival here, not luxury. So, that's the double bind that men are facing. To clear the social floor, you need time and people skills to meet people outside of work. To clear the income floor, you need a demanding full-time job that often consumes your life. Pick one. In my survey, 80% said that it feels difficult to balance earning enough to be eligible with having the time and energy to actually meet someone. The jobs that make you marriage eligible leave you no time or energy to actually meet women. The flexibility that would let you, actually date makes you financially ineligible. A little over 28% of Japanese men just won't get married. That's not choosing not to marry, that's cannot clear both floors simultaneously. And this is incredibly relevant to childbirth in Japan, where an overwhelming 98% of births happen within marriage. Men who don't get married don't experience fatherhood. The birth rate doesn't collapse because people stopped wanting families. It collapsed when the hurdles to having families becomes insurmountable. Super quick recap. Young Japanese men followed the roadmap their fathers did, only to find it led nowhere. They didn't get lifetime employment, they got flat wages for 30 years. Did they want a wife and family? Not on a 3 million yen a year salary. And if they did have the money, the dating world was an unfamiliar hellscape that they don't have time for. And yet it's still their fault for not trying harder. So, what do you do when you can't access a real connection? Well, you purchase a simulated one. Japan has an entire industry for this. They call it the water trade. Hostess clubs, girls' bars, snack bars, places where men pay to sit and talk with women. It's not sexual, it's closer to rental companionship. A woman sits down next to you, laughs at your jokes, and remembers your name and your story. Most importantly, she listens. She makes you feel, for an hour or two, like you matter to someone. The water trade exists because millions of Japanese men have no reliable access to feminine attention. Their jobs consume them. They have no social skills. They have no context for meeting anyone. Heck, even some married men find it difficult to open up to their wives. That's how deep this goes. But the thing about the water trade is, it's expensive. A salaryman earning 6 million a year can afford it on weekends. A non-regular worker earning 2.5 million yen a year? They can't. But what if I told you that there's an alternative that lets you pay what you want? VTubers, or virtual YouTubers, are anime avatars controlled by real performers. They stream gameplay, chat with viewers, and sometimes sing songs. Notably, they often cultivate parasocial relationships with their audiences. The business model is simple. Viewers send super chats, which are paid messages that the VTuber reads aloud on stream. Your name gets said and you get acknowledged. For a few seconds, she's talking to you. The VTuber industry hit 5.2 billion globally in 2025. And look, before Mugen shows up at my doorstep with a baseball bat, I know the fanbase is mostly healthy and diverse, right? But we have to be honest. The industry's explosion, especially the Japanese side during the pandemic, was fueled by lonely men realizing that a parasocial anime avatar felt warmer than the cold reality of the dating market. Whether it was more accessible, less transactional, or just safer, it scratched the itch. My previous video was about Japan's lost women, the ones working in the water trade, selling this simulated connection to pay off debt. I interviewed women in that economy. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out after this. But this is the other side, what the men experience. Women sell simulated intimacy because they need money or even validation. Men buy this simulated intimacy because they need connection and acknowledgement. The loneliness economy works as long as everyone understands the transaction. You pay, you receive attention, you go home. Simulation, not reality. But some men lose the plot here. Take Manabu Wakui. In 2024, 51-year-old Manabu stabbed a 25-year-old woman outside her apartment in Shinjuku. She worked at a girls' bar that he frequented. Over several years, he had given her 18 million yen, around $120,000, under the impression that they would get married. He sold his car, he sold his motorcycle. His father told reporters that he sold everything he could just to keep up the payments. Somewhere along the line, he forgot he was purchasing a service and thought he was providing financial security. He was only sentenced to 15 years. This isn't the typical case, of course, it's the extreme end of things. Most men who patronize the water trade know what they're getting into, more or less. But Wakui demonstrates the edge case of a man who has no real connections, no context, no social life, and the only woman who remembers his name works at a bar that charges by the hour. The loneliness economy doesn't compete with family formation. It's what fills the gap when family formation becomes impossible. Again, I can't stress enough that there are men who can use this normally and responsibly, but there are many men who choose this because they have no other option. But men who patronize the water trade are at least still participating. Where do men go if they don't feel a social connection at all? Well, there's two major paths in Japan. According to the Japanese government, 1.5 million people have withdrawn from society entirely. They don't go to work or go to school. Many don't even leave their rooms. You may have heard the term for this before. It's Hikikomori, and 60% of these Hikikomori are male. While the stereotype is that these shut-ins are young adults who are refusing to grow up, the reality is kind of shocking. Hikikomori are about as common in people over 40 as they are in younger adults. This problem actually has a name now, the 80-50 problem. What that means is that there's 80-year-old parents supporting 50-year-old children who have been shut in since the 1990s. Dr. Tamaki Saito, the psychiatrist who coined the term hikikomori, puts it this way. In Japan, people who aren't useful to society are seen as having no value. Hikikomori have internalized this to such an extreme degree that they feel that they have no right to exist. 1.5 million people have decided that this system isn't even worth interacting with, even into their old age. That brings us to kodokushi, or lonely death. In 2024, 76,000 people died alone in Japan. Their bodies were discovered by neighbors, social workers, or even landlords checking in on late rent. But notice it's not by their family. That's 208 people a day. 80% of them are men, some of whom weren't discovered for months. So if hikikomori is the life path, kodokushi is the lonely destination. And that's path A, the void, complete retreat. But not everyone retreats. Some men look at the broken deal and say, that's fine, if the old contract is dead, I'll make my own. They call it Ohitori-sama. Translated literally, it's a polite way to say solo, but can also be translated with a bit more nuance to mean party of one. And it's an 8 trillion yen economy of people going alone. But it's a bit unique from what happens in other countries. Here's what makes it interesting. The Ohitori-sama lifestyle isn't about doing solo activities. No, it's about taking activities that are normally social and doing them alone. For example, yakiniku is barbecue traditionally cooked on a shared grill with friends. But now there's restaurants with individual booths and grills partitioned off so you don't have to deal with anyone else. Karaoke too, now there's private rooms for one. Even camping, which was traditionally a bonding opportunity, exploded as a solo activity after the anime Yudu Camp made solitude look peaceful instead of depressing. The market saw men who couldn't access the social versions and built solo alternatives. Not worse, just different. And the culture is kind of admitting it out loud now. In my survey, 87% said that the idea that you can live a fulfilling life without marriage is becoming increasingly accepted. This is path B. It's the opposite of hikikomori. If hikikomori is a lifestyle of withdrawal, Ohitori-sama is a proactive non-participation. It's a group of individuals that decided that what makes life worth living isn't necessarily other people. And honestly, I think that's kind of admirable in its way. What it isn't, though, is a path to fatherhood. Neither hikikomori nor ohitori-sama leads to children. That's not a criticism, by the way, that's just the math. When men exit the system, the birth rate exits with them. Everything we've gone over tonight, the broken social contract, the double floor, the loneliness economy, hikikomori, ohitori-sama, all of it can be boiled down to a single number. Japan's total fertility rate hit 1.15 in 2024. To maintain a stable population, you need 2.1. Japan is barely clearing half of that. Fewer than 700,000 babies were born last year, but 1.6 million people passed away. That is a net loss of nearly 1 million people, and in 1 year. This is accelerating, by the way. Japan currently has about 125 million people. By 2070, that could hit 87 million, and in the year 2100, possibly 50 million. The country will lose a third of its population within the lifetime of people being born today, assuming anyone is being born. Tokyo is obviously the beating economic heart of the country, but the problem is even worse in the city. The fertility rate there is below 1.0, even lower than that of the national average. Experts call this the Tokyo black hole. Many young people move to Tokyo to start their careers, but they don't start families. The cost of living is, ironically, too high to support this life. And what pushes this issue into critical territory is that Tokyo is pulling the youth from all over the country. Entire regions are emptying, causing the appearance of marginal villages. These are communities where more than half of the population is over 65. The government's response has mostly been subsidies, namely 3.6 trillion for childcare support, cash payments for births and extending incentives for both men and women to take parental leave. But the thing is, subsidies assume people can form families but are choosing not to. They assume that the barrier is cost, but the barrier is eligibility. You can't subsidize your way to an extra 2 million income. You can't subsidize social skills. You can't subsidize a meeting place for young men and women. And for argument's sake, let's say this did fix things. The problem is demographic momentum. Even if tonight got really wild and the fertility rate jumped to 2.1 tomorrow, the decline would continue for decades. I'm gonna make you feel old here, but the people who would be having children in 2040 have already been born, and there aren't enough of them. The fix needed to happen 20 years ago, but we're past the prevention window and we're in the mitigation phase. So some people ask, what about immigration? In theory, sure. In practice, Japan would need hundreds of thousands of immigrants per year, permanently, to offset the decline. Remember how in 2024 there was a 900,000 person gap between births and deaths? That's triple the current number of immigration. That's not to mention that immigration doesn't address the fertility problem. Unless you're already providing the environment for residents to have children at above replacement rates, you're just kicking the can down the road. The fundamental issue, the issue that starting a family is systematically prohibitive for most of the population, that's still going on. The birth rate is really the outcome of a long list of variables. The extensive list of circumstances that ends up leading to this birth rate consistently shows that there's a deeper problem here. The men who studied hard, who tried to get stable jobs, who did everything their parents told them to do, they're rational actors responding to an irrational system. 80% of the people I surveyed said that many men feel that even if they try, marriage and family still aren't realistically attainable. They were told that their job was their life and they believed it. They trusted that everything would be handled if they put in the work. Their social life, family, and sense of belonging. If they just dedicated their youth, they would get a future worth living. But the results don't show that. 28% of people who will never marry. 76,000 people are dying alone every year, and they're mostly men. 1.5 million people are sealed off in their bedrooms, and they're mostly men too. But hey, at least they get to spend their money to have a woman acknowledge them. But here's the part that I keep coming back to. Some of them have just stopped waiting. The Ohitori-sama movement isn't a protest, and it's not a movement at all, really. It's just people trying to find a way to live when the old way was closed off. Solo yakiniku, solo camping, a life built around what's actually available, not what was promised. And that's not a solution to the demographic crisis. Nothing one person does can be, really. But it might be the only solution available to the individual. Japan isn't unique here, by the way, it's just early. The same math is starting to show up everywhere. South Korea, China, Southern Europe. Wages stagnate, housing prices climbs, stable unemployment disappears, and the path to family formation gets narrower and narrower. Japan isn't a cautionary tale about Japanese culture, it's a test case, and how its men adapt, whether they retreat, whether they build something new, or whether they find meaning outside the old contract, might tell us something about what's coming for everyone else. It's not the life that they were promised. That destination burned down a long time ago. But it is a life, and maybe that's a good thing.